We were briefly talking before this that kind of both of us geek out a little bit on software as a service. Just how you create this thing that you maintain and all these people pay you every month for it.
It's wild.
And it's like the greatest employee ever.
It's the greatest property ever. We set up an entrepreneur accelerator program and venture studio, and we've had about 5,000 people come through that on our accelerator. Part of it is about growing and scaling and building a successful company. The reason for that is because the more you know about how much effort goes into doing this stuff, it becomes a restriction on your thinking.
You want to be taking the time that you have, which is a limited resource, and applying it to something that's not going to be trading your time for money, but giving you the ability to leverage your time to multiply your money.
Every few hundred years, the world really fundamentally changes. So the agricultural into the industrial age was like a big shift. It's not like a day that it changes. It's 20, 30, 40 years that it changes. The industrial age is really coming to an end.
Yeah.
And the digital age is transforming. Things are changing, right?
Yeah.
The world that we grew up in is being disrupted. And a lot of people are very negative about that.
All right, guys, welcome to Success on Repeat. Welcome back, guys, to Success on Repeat. We are here in Tampa, Florida at the JW Marriott Hotel. And look, it's a tough life, but somebody has to live it, you know? And I'm here and I'm welcoming a very special guest, Mr. Daniel Priestley. You guys will know him. He's a best-selling author. You've done all kinds of cool stuff.
I've built some companies. I've sold some companies.
Yeah.
I've written 6 books.
Yeah.
Won some awards.
Won some awards.
Yeah, won some awards.
Done some cool things.
Done some cool things. Well, depends who's asking.
Yeah.
Only if you're an entrepreneur geek have I done some cool things.
Well, okay.
My 3 kids don't think I've done cool things unless I complete the Lego set.
I agree with that. How you have kids? So
yeah.
How old?
5, 6, and 9.
Okay. Yeah. Ours are 14, 13, 11, and 6.
Oh, wow. 4. You got lucky.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Oh, we're very blessed. And we homeschool. You guys homeschool?
We don't. We got a great school in London. Our kids go to a lovely school.
They actually teach English, right?
They have a great experience. They enjoy it. They got good friends. So at the moment, happy.
Yeah. Very cool. Okay. So, I'm very excited to have you. So thank you for sitting down. I've heard you speak, and I've read Key Person of Influence. Our coach Myron Golden gave us a copy. Forget what event it was, but he gave us a copy, and actually my wife read it before I did. Which is kind of funny. But success is a weird word, right? And so, where in your life would you say is the shining success? Maybe it's depending on who you're asking, entrepreneurs or whatever. What is the thing that you feel like is the project you're most proud of? It could be the current one, or it could be something in the past.
The project I'm most proud of would be in 2010, we set up an entrepreneur accelerator program and venture studio. And we've had about 5,000 people come through that on our accelerator. And part of it is about growing and scaling and building a successful company. And the other part of it is using a business as a force for good. And
cool.
The flow-on effect, the domino effect of that business has been, I can't even put it into words. I honestly, every other day, someone says, oh, as a result of the program, we're now working with this charity. One of my clients, Sebastian, he's just set up this charity. I made a recommendation to him to create a patrons program. They raised $600,000 on the patrons program.
Wow.
When they launched it. They're now going to roll out a program to work with orphans, 10,000 orphans in different parts of the world. It's built off the back of his very successful company that's built in Dubai. And I played a very small role in that, but I guided it in a few little ways. And that's just one of literally hundreds or thousands of examples of people who have just kind of incorporated that philosophy of using business as a force for good. And that's been incredible. My first reason for starting that business was I couldn't figure out what I should focus my attention on because I wanted to help so many things.
Yeah.
And I thought if I could just get 1,000 businesses to do $1 million worth of good, that would be, a billion worth of good.
That would be, that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just kind of thought, that would be amazing. Right. So.
That is amazing. I didn't know that. That's incredible. It's funny you say using business for good. I look at business almost as a ministry. And not everybody thinks that way. I know that's probably not the norm, but I personally like it because when I think of doing all of this stuff, if we're doing it just for me, right? Money is great, but once you have your bills paid, right, you get comfortable. There's only so much that money buys that you don't already have, right? Especially like, I know there's people that really like nice cars or nice watches.
You run out of that stuff pretty quick.
But, and I don't have anything against any of that stuff, but like for me, like cars, I'm not into cars.
But if you've got 4 kids,
right.
But if you've got 4 kids, they destroy the cars.
This is true. We have a conversion van actually that we travel with and have a lot of fun in the conversion van. And it's actually a funny story how I even ended up with a conversion van.
I've been cruising around in Myron's Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking, gee, it'd be nice to have a Rolls Royce. And then I immediately think, no.
Yeah, they spill something on it. It's like, that's only $100,000 stain.
You know? Okay, yeah, fantastic. It's just going to have like Cheetos just crushed into the seats.
Exactly right. Okay, so you understand what I mean.
Totally get it.
Yeah. So then it's what good can you do? And in my business, part of the reason that I'm even doing media, right? Because there's certain growth strategies in payment processing. One of them is software integrations. And software integrations has been a large part of our growth in the recent past. And that's great, but I'm usually dealing with 1 or 2 people at that organization. And so that growth, while it's financially beneficial, like what impact am I really having on the world with that? Mm-hmm. And of course I could take the money and then do other things with it. There's all of that. But for me personally, I enjoy connecting with people and helping people. So what I was thinking was doing the media to encourage people to get into the business. They could come on with us. We'll coach them on how to do this because, you know, the bills that we all have are residual, they're monthly. Mm-hmm. So our income should be residual, right? We should find residual businesses, right? Payment processing, payroll processing, software as a service, you know, other things that we can, avenues that we can have that will have a limited amount of maintenance that we have to provide to the customer while still providing something to the customer, but also still have that revenue coming in on a recurring basis. And so helping them do that was cool. But then also the other piece of it is I had this kind of, I don't want to call it a revelation, but like I had this understanding that I came to where when we teach them how to make money, that's the treasure. Well, the Bible says where the treasure is, there the heart will be also. So when we have the treasure, we also have the heart, right? So we've coached them to bring them to this. Now they're going to trust us in other areas and we can help them become a force for good, right? And we can disciple them and show them, hey, look, other guys say it's a dog eat dog world and that business is cutthroat and all that. But I can tell you it doesn't have to be that way. You could just try to have happy customers, you know? And
it works better that way.
It does. And so anyways, that's the thing you made me think of about your little project, because I'm just starting out on my business as a force for good project, you know? And it's exciting. Any tips for me on that?
I think thinking really long term, you know, I wonder what the impact of this will be 20, 30, 40 years into the future. And just having that, you know, I have an image in my mind of like, there's certain people in my life and I love the idea that we're going to get old someday together and look back at all the adventures that we had. Yeah. And I try and make decisions with that in mind. You know, what are we going to be sitting around late in the evening, you know, sharing a bottle of wine, talking about the good old days. What do we want to be talking about?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
you know, so
you want to talk about fulfilling things, things that actually matter.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of stuff that you think matters in the moment, it doesn't.
Right.
And a lot of stuff that you think doesn't matter in the moment, over time and distance, really matters.
Yeah.
There are certain things that you kick off little movements, you kick off little relationships, you spark things. And you realize that it's actually certain conversations that matter a lot.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. All right. So switching gears a little bit, we teach our guys that software and payments go together. And the old way of winning business for us was pulling doors at small businesses and saying, hey, we can save you some money on your credit card processing, right? And while that still today may be a strategy, it's definitely not the most effective strategy, right? And so software and payments going together has become kind of a thing. And so we were briefly talking before this that kind of both of us geek out a little bit on software as a service and just how you create this thing that you maintain and all these people pay you every month for it.
It's wild.
And it's like the greatest employee ever.
Yeah, it's the greatest property ever. You know, if I was to build a house and I want to rent the rooms,
Okay.
I run out of rooms pretty quickly.
You sure do.
But when you build software and you want to rent the rooms, there's just an infinite number of rooms.
Yeah.
So if you said to me right now, hey, I've got 10,000 people who want to sign up to the software, I just say, here's the usernames and passwords. Rock and roll. Let's do it.
Rock and roll. Yeah.
You know, do you want us to sign them up? Do they want to sign up? But so we can, you know, and that actually does happen. We sign up 9,000 new clients a month now. So it works out at about one every 5 minutes, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Congrats.
There's been like 3 since we've been talking.
That's awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and it's wild. So every single person, every 5 minutes who creates an account, those people are getting the value from the software development that we did over the last 3 years. And, you know, everything that we put into that, they're able to access that very cheaply.
Right.
Average client pays about $50 a month. And they get this incredible, you know, millions of dollars worth of development for $50 a month. But we get it,
right.
we get an infinite number of the
iterations.
We can help people to with our software.
Instances. Wow. So, okay. Similarity between, like, say, SaaS and payment processing. I get some flack sometimes because sometimes we use the word passive for the income, right?
Mm-hmm.
And payment processing is not a passive income. I would argue that 99.99% of things are not passive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even real estate, right? Unless you're just like a bajillionaire and you have people that manage the people that manage your money.
Yeah.
Right. Then none of it's passive. But the idea that you can do work once, right? You build out this software, this framework, and that the income potential is largely unlimited.
Yeah,
right?
It's exponential, it's scalable.
Exponential, scalable, those are better words.
Yeah.
I like that. It's something I think people struggle to wrap their mind around. So you just built software one day? I mean, do you code?
No,
I mean, tell me how did you get into software as a service? You know what I mean? Because you're an author, right?
Yeah.
You own some other companies and stuff.
So there's a few components to software. One part of software development is understanding the customer and understanding what they're trying to get done and what stops them from getting it done.
Okay.
And one part of it is the technical knowledge as to how to code and how to put together a product and build something that is technically brilliantly executed as a product.
Sure.
It's very rare that those two things actually are in one person. Very, very rare indeed.
Yeah. No, this is like sales and operations.
It is, yeah. So I have a co-founder, Steve. Steve and I have worked together on multiple businesses for the last 15 years. And he is absolutely brilliant. And when I say brilliant, when our code has been independently assessed, it's in the like top few percentile of, like, it's up there with the Microsofts and the Googles.
Yeah,
and,
wow,
like,
okay.
Yeah, so it's independently analyzed, and there's very little you can do to improve it. It's incredible. He's incredible at what he does.
Yeah, wow.
He's a proper genius. However, Steve's also quite an introvert. So he's not likely to be out there networking with hundreds of people, and he's not likely to be doing hundreds of sales calls and all of that sort of stuff. So the way that the two of us work really well, I have customer insights. I know what customers want, what they're trying to do. I explain that to Steve.
Which is why you're riding around in a Rolls Royce in Tampa, Florida.
Yeah, I'm hanging out on the front lines, doing it tough on the front line, right? And then I go and talk to Steve and I say, so this is what I've picked up, right? So like our customers, what they're trying to do is this, and we're not really helping them do that, and this is what I think we need to do.
Yeah.
And I'll kind of muddle together that.
Yeah.
And
you draw it on a napkin, right?
Exactly.
And he's an artist.
Now he will sit there quietly and go, Now he'll come back to me 2 weeks later, and I think he hasn't paid, I don't think he's even taken it in.
Yeah.
2 weeks later, he'll show me what he's built, and I go, damn, how did you do that, right?
You know, my wife and I kind of have this thing where we have a friend that does that. You know, and it's a loaded and there's almost like little nuances to the you know, like I couldn't tell which was that.
Well, it is whatever's going on in Steve's head. He's been picturing user interface. He's been picturing how it does database. He's been integrating AI, right? So all of our SaaS is now AI-enabled SaaS. So we have these incredible AI features. And Steve's just putting all of that together. And what's interesting is by the time he's built that, I've been out talking to more customers.
Right. You've always got more work for them.
We've been figuring it out. You know, this idea of passive income, I found a word that works better, which is asset income. Asset income is that we earn income off of assets. and that if we can build, the more assets we can build, asset is anything that has permanent value.
Yeah.
It has value whether I'm in the room or not.
Right.
So my house is valuable whether I'm there or not.
Sure.
My shares in Microsoft are valuable whether I'm there or not.
Right.
So all of these things are assets because they have independent value. But the new assets is code, data, media assets, right? So we're creating an asset right now.
That's right.
If this goes onto YouTube, you and I could get hit by a bus and it will still be there playing videos perhaps, right?
Yeah.
So
probably get even more views because of us getting hit by a bus, God forbid.
It'd be like famous art, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Exactly.
So the more you create assets, then the more you create opportunities for income. And, assets aren't passive in their nature, but they are assets that produce a yield. So they need maintenance, they need development.
Well, like having a cow, you still have to milk it.
You still milk the cow.
You can still milk the cow, right?
Yeah.
But going and buying milk at the store is more costly than having the cow, right? Which, just a silly example.
I like mixing these metaphors up.
But when it comes to assets, a lot of people don't think of merchant accounts as assets. So as a person that owns a business selling merchant accounts, that payment processing account, that contract that you have with that merchant,
that contract is an asset.
It is absolutely an asset. And people don't think of this, that, hey, I didn't have to put a down payment and get a loan.
Well, do you know the funny thing is that contracts are actually the assets. So when you own a house, it's actually not really the house that's valuable, because if you don't have the paperwork, right, like that's a very difficult asset. If you were to just put up a house and not get the approval from the government for the building standards,
right.
So it's when you ultimately all assets come back to contracts. They all come back to paperwork. So a patent is a contract, even when you sell a company, ultimately the transaction is the creation of the contract. So when you do an exit, you do a data room and it shows all the things in the business, and then that gets turned into a contract and it lists out all of the things on a schedule and then you sign, and then that signature, and then they transfer the money, which is a good day.
Yeah, right? It's a good day.
Yeah, and then it's the exchange of contracts. Mm-hmm. So contracts are assets. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. It's interesting that you just validated in a way what I've been saying in a way that I've never even thought of.
There's a reason we had to chat.
Yeah, exactly. Even like the real estate part being the deed, because if you take that to its nth degree, even in like feudal days, right? Or when it was only your ability to defend that land. Mm-hmm. So maybe at that point the asset was really the army or whatever, right?
Well, there was also like declarations, right? So there's Declaration of Independence.
Yeah.
So they created a contract.
Yeah, they sure did.
Right? And they said, this is our Declaration of Independence from Britain.
Yeah.
Right? So, and the Magna Carta.
Right.
It was a very important document. Mm-hmm. So these are contracted, this is the agreement.
Yeah.
And these are the assets that our countries are built on.
Yeah. Wow. I'm reeling a little bit because now my brain's going in like 6 different directions on it. So, but I want to kind of stay with SaaS. I really think that software as a service, especially for, people that are interested, you found a very brilliant guy, right? But I think the average person that's thinking of software, you came up with these ideas for these softwares. Am I right? Okay. So tell me, what are your software companies? And I want to kind of understand, how did you come up with the idea for what you created?
So the 2 software companies I currently have is scoreapp.com, which is it's online quizzes and surveys and assessments.
Right.
AI generates a lot of the work. What used to take us 5 or 6 weeks to do, we now do in 5 or 6 minutes. I know it sounds ridiculous, but if you see it, it's jaw-dropping because the AI just does all the work. So within, say, like ClickFunnels, when you're building out a funnel, or you're using High Level, one of these softwares, building out some of this stuff on your own, quizzes and things like this. Yeah. I think there is, and maybe you created this buzz in the market. There is an understanding, I think, in some places, some circles, that quizzes and surveys are a useful method for gaining leads. They're incredible.
Right.
So just the background of this is that in 2015, I launched a online assessment, which is a quiz is part of an assessment.
Sure.
So there's the landing page that explains it. Then there's the quiz where you answer a series of questions. Then there's the results of the assessment.
Sure.
Right. So, and this would be the same if you went to a doctor. The doctor would say, "Let me quickly take you through an assessment, and then let me give you the results of the assessment." So, I I think of quizzes almost like a cheesy teenage kind of thing, or like test your knowledge. But an assessment is we're trying to test the situation and better understand the situation. So we created an assessment in 2015. 90,000 people took it. 20 million worth of sales came off the back of it. It was an amazing campaign.
Sorry, 90,000 people took it. 20 million in sales off of an assessment.
Off an assessment.
Okay, all right.
Well, it's the best type of sale because when you're selling something that's intangible, people don't know if they need it or not. So they answer an assessment. The assessment then highlights their strengths and weaknesses, and then it becomes obvious as to where this fits into their life.
Yeah, they sell themselves.
Exactly. So some of the best.
Brilliant.
Yeah, an assessment-based selling is an incredible way to do sales.
Well, what I mean, when we teach sales guys how to sell, and we're usually teaching a one-on-one sale, we talk a lot about owner-managed businesses. Mm-hmm. The way we do it is by asking questions.
Yeah.
All you're saying is that you've done this.
We just automated
it.
Yeah. And like, imagine you're talking to a business owner and they say, oh, why should I sign up? And you say, actually, I don't know if you should. We have a quick assessment. It's 20 minutes. It's 20 questions. And at the end, it'll actually give us a red light, yellow light, green light. If it's green light, it means there's a bunch of savings.
Yeah.
If it's red light, it means there's absolutely no benefit.
Right.
Amber means that maybe we'll have to have a closer look.
Right.
Right. And we'll know in 2 minutes.
Yeah. Yellow's human intervention.
Yeah.
God forbid. Yeah.
But it's like for most business owners that see that, they're like, oh, so you're not trying to sell me something. You're just trying to see if I'll be able to answer myself whether it's good. So it's an assessment. So we did this assessment. It was a very successful campaign. It exceeded our expectations. And then people said, how do I build one of these assessments? So I started kind of like running people through the strategy, and I started mapping it out and drawing it for people and saying, well, you need a landing page, you need a data capture form, you need quiz questions, and then you need dynamic results that change based on the quizzes. So that kind of like was a bit of a blueprint, and people were like, oh, that's...
No, and I can tell you from experience, building all that out, it was very difficult.
It's very hard.
And I ended up giving up. I ended up using a different strategy than the assessment.
So people say exactly that, and they go, oh, that's going to be like 6 weeks and 20 grand or 15, something like that. And they're like, oh, too hard basket.
Yeah.
So then we went, it's not that hard. We just need to build some templates. So we started to build some templates. And then we realized, actually, we can build the whole engine around how to promote it, how to capture the leads, AI-generated content based on the questions. So where we are today is that people click a button with AI, it asks them a few questions about their business, it then builds out an assessment campaign. When they launch the campaign, all the quiz questions come in. It then writes emails based on individual results. So if you fill it in and it says, oh, you need to get the blue one with the extra large windows, it's like, boom, and it writes the email and says, based on how you did it, blah, 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 here's what we noticed about your quiz.
Yeah.
And it fires off a dedicated, personalized email based on how you answered the email. So it does all of that.
Wow. Okay. So that's Scorecard app. So that's one of your companies.
Yep.
And you got the idea for that from you creating it.
Yeah.
And then other people being like, wow, that was really successful. Help me do that.
So the second company is a very similar story.
Okay.
I wrote a bunch of books. I wrote 6 books, and everyone says, oh, how do I write a book? And like, how do you write books? And I had 3 kids under 4 while I was writing books as well.
I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been there.
It's like, and I said, well, there's just a format. There's a way.
Not the writing 6 books.
No, the 3 kids under 4. Yeah, that's a fun one.
Yeah.
So people say, how did you do it? And I say, oh, there's just a set of steps that I go through. There's something that I do in the introduction to get people to commit to reading to the end. And there's something I do to open the book to disrupt them. And then I introduce new insights, and then I introduce a methodology. So it's like I have this arc that I do. All of my books follow the same arc. And people are like, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Right. And if there's 21 things in that arc and you do 2,000 words per thing, there's your 40,000 words.
There you go. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, cool.
So it's like a template.
Yeah. So I kind of like was showing people, that's how I write my books. And then when AI came along, we went, wait a second, we can just turn that into an AI generated support tool. It doesn't write the book for you, but it turns your idea into a mapped out arc.
Wow. Yeah.
And it tells you what to write in each section.
Yeah.
So then it just builds out all the sections using AI, and it just tells you in each section, in this section, we want you to write these sorts of things, and here's some suggestions, right? So it goes, so we created this bookmagic.ai.
Because I've tried. I've got like 4 unfinished books at the moment, right? And you come to certain points, and knowing where to put what and what to do next, it can be difficult. the outline, like is what you're describing in those prompts. And I've tried going into ChatGPT and saying like, okay, here's what I already have, and this is what I want to do, and it doesn't.
We have figured out a series of cascading prompts.
Yeah.
That takes an idea and it just cascades it out.
Wow.
Right? So basically, so zooming out a bit.
Yeah.
In both of those examples, I did something myself which worked.
Yeah.
People were asking me about how do I do it. We helped people do it manually, and then we turned it into a software business.
Genius. Yeah.
That's how we've done it. I personally believe that the big revolution at the moment is software as a service that's AI enabled. And there's 3 ingredients, which is your unique intellectual property, something that you deeply understand, deeply know about.
Right.
Mixed with user inputs, mixed with AI, LLMs, large language models. So very simple, you ask customers questions. You then mix that with your intellectual property that you know more than they know.
Yeah.
Right. And then you send it off to an LLM and you bring it back to them inside a portal.
Right. Yeah. It's incredible. Yeah.
And then the flip on that is then you give away 15% of the company to a whole bunch of large influencers who have huge audiences.
Yes.
So influence for equity. They get you to your first 10,000 users. That gets you to your first 6 or 7 million of revenue.
Right.
And then you've got a $60 to $70 million company.
Like that. And because it's SaaS and the value is in that recurring revenue.
Yeah.
And I think that's a low key thing that people don't quite get is the recurring revenue piece scales the EBITDA, right? When it comes to selling it,
it's extremely high it's a high margin, high quality of earnings, high margin revenue. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the margins is a whole other piece of it, right?
Yeah.
That you only have to cover that base cost. And then once you've covered your overhead, there's no more variable cost.
No.
Maybe it's minuscule if you have to up your servers at Google or AWS or whoever.
You tend to have to in reality, you tend to have to up your customer success team. Right. So you tend to hire some extra people.
Sure.
Normally, we hire people in the Philippines who do CS, and they're about $2,000 per month.
Sure.
So, you do end up hiring a bit bigger CS team. You will typically have a few more developers.
Sure.
You might bring in a product lead or something like that. So there are some,
but at scale, we're talking but you're not talking $100,000 in revenue, I have to add another $5,000.
You're not talking huge capex. Yeah. If we were scaling a restaurant, every time I want to double the revenue, I need to double the restaurant floor space, right? So huge capex.
That's right.
Massive capex.
Yeah.
So software's not like that.
Right.
It's ridiculous how.
Well, and in restaurants, you're dependent on the next customer to come in.
Mm-hmm.
You're not starting the month over.
No.
At already with this set of customers being billed again. Yeah. Right. You're starting over at zero.
The software business is.
Yeah.
It's an incredible business.
Right. Right. Which really, it's the as a service industry, right? Because payments as a service, software as a service, right? It's any of these things that we can put on as a service where the service itself is fulfilled in some non-manual process, right? Because I could go be a painter, I could be a plumber, an electrician, or whatever. I could have a home service business.
Yeah.
And yes, that's a service business, but I'm still, again, dependent on the phone to ring, and I'm manually doing the service, right? Pool cleaning or whatever, right? Something that's recurring, lawn maintenance. Although I do have to say, I do favor the lawn business for guys starting out that they're young, they're energetic, they have the energy, and they want to go make some money. I feel like just go down the neighborhood street and go find some, there's no excuse for guys not to be able to make some money, right?
Totally.
And then, oh, by the way, those agreements that you have with all those customers,
that's an asset.
Contract are an asset.
Yeah, and you can sell that
you can then sell.
And it's a last business, lawn as a service.
Right. Exactly. Well, last business, where then you don't, and what I don't think maybe the guys in, say, the lawn business understand, at least some of them, right? We actually did a podcast with some guys that are lawn business influencers, oddly enough, right? I was like, this is amazing, right? But you can then sell that book of business for a multiple, right? And I don't think guys think this, because imagine selling it to a guy that has crews already. Mm-hmm. He's already in your area.
Wants to grow, doesn't want to step on anyone's toes.
He'll pay a premium for that because he's not adding expenses.
Yeah.
He's just buying your book.
Yeah.
Right? And he'll come in, continue
all happens quickly. He can deliver it. He doesn't have to come in and knock on doors and then they say, we've already got a guy. Yeah.
Exactly right. So he's willing to put off the profitability of that to later because he didn't have to do the work to get it, you know?
It's a good way to kick off, good way to get started.
It is. And then come up with the software.
On a serious note, I actually, when I do this work where I go into prison and I work with, we run Shark Tank style pitching competitions with the guys in prison.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Right? In many cases, they're entrepreneurs who chose a product that is
100%.
Not a great
I was just
product.
thinking that. I was like, these are some good sales guys.
But they were doing 24 hours a day, 7 day a week customer service. They had recurring repeat business.
Yeah.
All of those things, but ultimately it wasn't the right product.
Yeah.
So we basically sort of say, hey, you've got transferable soft skills. One of the businesses that we often recommend is lawn, bins, car. Like you can go into a particular neighborhood and say, we'll do the lawns, we'll do the gardening, we'll clean the bins, we'll clean the car, all as a package. And these guys, they're like, okay, that's pretty cool.
Right. Well, and what's great is one of the amazing things about entrepreneurship is there's no background check, right? So for guys that are, like you're saying, in prison, one of the big struggles is they try to go back and do the normal way, right? Go to school, go back to school, get a job, and somebody wants this, laundry list resume. Like, I've been in jail for the last.
And in many cases, these guys are born entrepreneurs.
Right.
They've got the entrepreneurial spirit.
Right.
So even
with
if
no guidance,
if they could get well, actually, that's not true.
Okay,
just bad guidance.
Okay, good point.
Yeah, they all have a mentor. They all have a mentor.
That's right.
Right. They just got the mentor who steered them in the wrong direction. In every single case, they wanted to do something that would elevate them out of a bad situation. They wanted to make some money. They looked around. The only people who had a nice car, who seemed to be doing well, were these guys.
Yeah.
So they get enrolled into it. So I've spent a lot of time with these guys, and they genuinely, in many cases, want to go on the right track.
Yeah. That's incredible. I mean, what a rewarding experience too. So have you had any guys that were successful at doing that?
I have had many. There was one guy who really stood out to me.
Yeah.
And he was when he was in prison, he learned chess and he became a very good chess player. And he was reading business books and he kept his head down. He was very he just had a very positive energy.
Yeah.
He struck me as like a serious character.
Sure.
I actually brought him onto my team. He did 2 years with me, and then he went off and started his own business. He's got a pretty successful business in the sort of high 6-figure range.
Yeah.
Him and his wife, they've had kids now, so he's gotten married. He's got a successful business. He's gone very respectable. He had that experience at 18, 19. He's now mid to late 20s. He's doing very, very well for himself. He'll end up being a very successful millionaire type person.
Because one of the issues with the statistics on this is that a lot of these guys, if they don't find the opportunity,
they reoffend.
Yeah. Right. And so, I mean, I commend you. It's
great fun.
I bet it is.
Yeah.
It does sound like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Especially the part where, I don't know, a little bit on the dangerous side. I've never sold, anything that I wasn't supposed to sell, right? But it almost seems like these guys would have some experience, some tactics, and some strategies and skills that other people just don't have.
Yeah. They're very sensible, these guys. Yeah. When we talk through what are the transferable soft skills, they know exactly what was working and what wasn't working.
Sure.
When we talk about the utility of cash, and we basically say beyond about $50,000 of cash, it becomes a liability, and actually having cash becomes a full-time job trying to clean the money to use the money.
Yeah.
And that you can't really use it for much. They totally get it. They're like, they're like, it's not what I want. I don't want it. I want to find something else. So it's very rewarding work. Any entrepreneur, I recommend trying to find a charity that does that work.
Yeah.
If you're looking for something, it's a way to change someone's life. It's also a way to clean up your own community.
Yeah.
Because people do reoffend if they don't have another opportunity. Selfishly, I want my city that I live in to be a better city. So I want to do something that contributes to that.
Yeah. Wow. Man. Okay. So, you guys obviously have softwares. How do you guys accept payments through your softwares? Do you guys have any reason where you have payments bolted on to Scorecard app, or I mean, I guess on the billing side you have your own stuff, but I mean for the merchants themselves.
We have inbuilt payments that is the standard subscription. We have Boost. You can just say, oh, I want a bit more of that. Boost me up.
Okay.
So they're in platform payments.
Okay. So meaning, but that's for them to pay you.
Yeah.
But do you have a way that the merchants say they set up a
how do we make payments?
No. Meaning the merchants themselves. So the guys that come to you and use your software, they set up an assessment. Maybe at the end, they're selling something.
Oh, that's for them. They have
so they don't have. We got to fix that.
You think I didn't even know we could do that.
So think about it. At the end of the process of the assessment, if there's something that needs to be sold.
Well, we normally at that point we just take them back to their normal website.
Okay, all right.
So
you're on like a hosted page.
Yeah, there's a button and it'll just link back to
it brings you to the assessment, then you bring them back to the page. Okay.
But maybe we could do inbuilt payments.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to do paid assessments. So people have actually asked us about like having a paid assessment where they charge for it. Like quite a complex business coaching type assessment.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. Almost. Well, and even where, let's say, for example, you're a coach or a consultant, and one of the first things have you ever been through this experience where they want you to do an assessment, right?
Yep.
I know, by the way, you're going to somebody else's website and paying for it, but maybe they could host it, and pay for it all right through it.
Yeah. I'll talk to Steve.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
With a napkin. I'll have a pen and a napkin ready.
Precisely. Yeah. I may know a payments firm that could help you, with the integration piece of that, Although Steve might be the guy for the integration part.
He's pretty well. It's definitely not me.
Yeah,
I
honestly, it's not me either. Yeah. We both have
the same
somebody else for that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. I think not being the guy that does everything is an important piece of the puzzle. Because payments and software go together, there was a time where I was like, I need to get on Code Academy, right? Which is just a website online that teaches coders, right? Yep. And I need to at least learn like JavaScript, And as much as like, say, my brain is such that I can figure that out, I could do it. The pragmatic piece of then deploying that skill would be grueling.
Do you know, I think it's of huge benefit to not know how it happens.
Because more and more, I'm like, I don't want to know.
The reason for that is because the more you know about how much effort goes into doing this stuff, it becomes a restriction on your thinking.
Yeah.
Because you go, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we could do this? Oh, that's a lot of work. Right? You don't want to have that thought. So one of the reasons that I like the relationship I have with Steve, I have no idea what happens behind that curtain. Right? So I just go, hey, I've had a cool idea. Yeah. What if the video did this and then we built in this and we do all this?
Yeah.
And like I'm just drawing on napkins and whiteboards and Steve's sitting there going,
yeah.
And I don't know whether he's going, I can knock this together in a day. There are some times where I've said to Steve, hey, that idea we talked about a couple of weeks ago, how's that come along? He's like, Dan, that's a 6-weeker, man. Like, seriously, I haven't got magic wands back here.
I almost offended,
Yeah. He has been offended a few times.
No doubt.
I'm like, why did that take so long? He's like, what?
Yeah. It's funny that you say that because I would about 60% of our book as a company, Champion Payments, is restaurants. And part of that is because of restaurant POS software that I was able to resell, and I had found a company in my local market that the guy had built the software, and it was I don't want to call it built on a platform of outdated technology, because to me I'm like, well, this is a workhorse and it functions and it works, and it's premise based, right? We're not even talking in the cloud, right? This is something that the restaurant uses, and there's a server in the building, in the back office.
Wow.
But server's fancy for just a file server, right? Nothing super fancy SQL server. And man, I can tell you that, I don't know, this suit was probably paid for by selling that software, right, over time. But because he was in my local market and he and I just kind of developed such a friendship, he would almost use me a little bit sometimes, which I didn't necessarily like a ton, but I understood it because I would ask him for things that he would give me, right? But the flip side of that was that I was also like a in-field quality assurance rep, right? That I was taking things that, I'd ask for this, it needs to do this or do this, kind of what you're talking about. Need to adjust this over here.
Yeah, just a tweak.
A
tweak. Sure.
And I had made the mistake of, that should be easy, right? And like, I got a lecture, right? But I've heard him many times say that should be easy. And I thought that would be the hardest part.
Yeah.
It shows me that I really do only know enough to be dangerous to myself. And
That's
others.
it.
Yeah.
That's the best way to be.
Yeah. Because that's easy, right?
If you pull on that thread, the whole thing right?
Exactly right.
So yeah, no, I like not knowing.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't want to know how the sausages are made.
How the sausage is made. That's good. Well, and to that end, right? Our guys that we coach, one of the things that we're continue to coach them on is like a great example. I'll have guys that do like websites. They'll build websites as a service that they do. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And to me, in my personality, it's not that I can't be creative, but like what I like and what I'm creative about, what somebody else likes and what their creativity may not be the same thing, right? So, and especially new business owners, which a lot of these website guys deal with new business owners, are very particular. They're overthinking everything, right? They're not just like, hey, all right, we just need a website, put the title up there, give me a form, whatever. They're not doing that. They're, nitpicking every little piece. And it just means it's a lot of work. And yet then when they bring in the revenue though, it's a one-time revenue piece and then a very small, and they're not scaled to the point where they can build websites fast enough to where they could scale up that SaaS piece, right? Maybe it's a $30 a month hosting fee, but they're going to max be able to bring on 3 clients a month, because they can only build them so fast, right? So one of the pieces of that puzzle is finding things, again, that don't cause you to have to be the one manually fulfilling the process, which I can't overstate that.
Yeah, it is that trying to build the asset rather than,
right.
Tinker.
Yeah, exactly right. So, man, thank you so much.
My pleasure. I've enjoyed this.
Do you have any thoughts or any last words for?
Well, look,
for the folks?
here's a big thought to finish on, right?
Okay.
Every few hundred years, the world really fundamentally changes. So the agricultural into the industrial age was like a big shift.
Yeah.
And it's not like a day that it changes. It's 20, 30, 40 years that it changes. But it crossfades like a DJ between songs.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Yeah,
big, long crossfade.
That's good. I got you.
So what's happening at the moment is we are the industrial age is really coming to an end.
Yeah.
And the digital age is transforming. And things are changing, right?
Yeah.
The world that we grew up in is being disrupted.
Sure.
And a lot of people are very negative about that. So, for example, in the industrial age, we needed a lot of skilled labor through a schooling system, and we needed a lot of capital in order to do anything.
Sure.
We didn't need a lot of land. We didn't need a lot of enterprise. In this new, we don't need as much capital. We can start businesses with almost nothing. We actually don't need a lot of labor. We can start businesses with small teams, but we need a lot of enterprise. And the school never taught enterprise, right? Because land, labor, capital, enterprise. We need a lot of enterprise, but we don't have a lot of enterprise.
Define enterprise. I mean, in this scenario.
So in this, right, agricultural age, land, labor, capital, enterprise. We need a lot of land. It doesn't matter. You don't need a lot of capital, labor, or enterprise. Skilled labor or enterprise.
Okay.
Enterprise is the ability to spot opportunities and commercialize them. Go out there and do.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
It's that big thinking around finding markets, coming up with products, innovation, commercial innovations.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
School never teaches any of that stuff.
No.
So a very simple way to think about enterprise versus labor is the supply side and enterprise is the demand side. So enterprise figures out what the market wants and labor delivers what the market wants, right?
Sure.
Labor works inside a business. Enterprise creates a business, labor works inside a business. The industrial system said we need lots of skilled labor to work inside businesses. Now the world has been disrupted. Land, we don't need much of that. Labor, we don't need much of that. Capital, we don't even need much of that anymore.
Right.
But we need lots of enterprise.
Lots of enterprise.
So the big thinking here is that every person has to relearn and retrain to wake up that entrepreneurial spirit.
Yes.
You gotta become more entrepreneurial.
I love that.
Yeah. You gotta get out of being labor or capital and get into being enterprise.
I keep hearing it said that it's easier to make money today than it ever has been.
If you're entrepreneurial.
If you're entrepreneurial. Right. Because I've known entrepreneurial people.
But I'll quickly on this. It's actually harder than ever to make money with capital these days. Here's the thing. I know people who've got hundreds of millions. They don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. I don't have hundreds of millions, but I do have certain monies. I'm like, what do I do?
But it's what do you do with it, right?
Yeah.
Because if you look at individual stocks, Almost all individual stocks seem overvalued. You look at individual properties, almost all properties seem overvalued.
Yes.
You look at bonds and you go, oh, wait a second, everything seems like it's in a bubble. It's very hard to find good uses of capital. The other thing too, successful businesses now, they don't even need a lot of capital. I've built a global business, 150 countries, thousands of customers. We raised less than $1 million. Right, we can, and we were cash flow positive before we needed to raise anything more. And we've got huge amount of money in the bank, and we don't even know what to deploy it on.
Yeah,
because we're just growing through the cash flow.
Well, we should strategize. I mean, I'm just saying.
I can solve that.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm not claiming that, but we should strategize. I'm on a scale. I'm on a similar but less scaled position. So I mean, I'm with you on that being a problem. I 100% recognize it. It's like I own a couple properties, but like I don't want to necessarily be in the real estate business and then go and start doing because it's not passive.
It's not passive. No.
Right. The stock market, when I first started making, decent income, I did this thing I was supposed to do. I went and started, funding IRAs and putting it into the stock market, and immediately the stock market crashed. And that was just like I have no idea what I'm doing, right? Yeah. I would need to obviously educate myself, and I'm busy over here actually making money, right? Which is working, and I don't want to take my foot off the gas over
Enterprise.
here.
Enterprise is your strong suit. You're an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
There's a reason I've got 8 different businesses, and that is because entrepreneurship is where it's at.
Yeah.
So that's the final thought. The big thought is be the entrepreneur.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here.
Cheers, man.
Appreciate you. All right, guys, you've heard it here. Being an entrepreneur is what you need to be for today. So if you're working in a job, you're doing something you don't love, if you're working for some big company and you're schlepping for them, what you want to be doing is you want to be working for yourself. You want to be taking the time that you have, which is a limited resource, and applying it to something that's not going to be trading your time for money, but giving you the ability to leverage your time to multiply your money. So that's my last recommendation for you. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you're blessed by this episode. We'll see you on the next one.